I know exactly how it is. You spend absolutely ages setting everything up and plugging it in, ready to get some amazing fuzzy alt-rock sounds, only to realise that the sound you've got in your head isn't quite what's coming out of the speakers. Well, to help, today we're going to be diving into the world of 90s alt-rock, and I've got 3 tone tips that I think most guitarists overlook, so let's get started. If you've seen any of the other videos on this channel, then you'll know that I'm into kind of alternative, indie, shoegazy stuff that probably pretty much originated in the 90s. And once I got my ears wrapped around Nirvana, and Smashing Pumpkins, My Bloody Valentine, bands like that, it was all over for me, and that's basically the only type of music I wanted to make. All of those bands at some point in their music were using a lot of distortion. I know online there's endless videos recommending fuzz pedals, kind of like this one here, and they sound amazing on the videos, but then you might find that when you take them into your band practice, you end up just getting lost in the mix. And when me and my bandmates first started using the Big Muff pedal, we actually found that too. On its own it would sound so cool, but as soon as you played, you just hear this fizzy top end sitting there, but you couldn't really hear the full tone of the guitar. So my first tip is to do with getting that fuzz to sit right in the mix. And the way we're going to do that is with one of these. An overdrive pedal. It doesn't necessarily have to be the plumes, that's just the one I'm using at the moment, but just some sort of overdrive that can sit before your fuzz, because I think it really helps it to cut through the mix better. My thinking is, obviously those fuzz pedals are really kind of scooping the mids, and the overdrive just seems to help to just fill them in and then allow your guitar sound to come through in a band situation. Now, if you didn't catch it already, the fuzz I'm using today is the Warlow by Jupiter Effects. It's an awesome pedal, and it's basically both a Big Muff pedal and then a Rat as well. And for this demonstration, I've actually got it with the switch down, which means it's doing just the fuzz side of it, the Big Muff side of it. So let's hear the difference between just the fuzz being on and then the fuzz and the overdrive. While the differences are subtle, I really do think it's adding some of those mids back in. If you look here on the EQ analyzer, on the left we've got just the Warlow on its own, and then on the right we've got it with the overdrive pedal as well. And I think you'll see that when the one with the overdrive plays, it's got definitely some more frequencies in the 400 to 500 range, and maybe 1 to 2K as well. So it's just adding in those things that you're losing just with the fuzz pedal. And like I said, whilst it's subtle, that is going to make a massive difference in a mix. Okay, so now we've got our sound, I think it would be a good idea to hear how it fits within a mix with some drums and some bass. And because I can't afford to pay anyone to play drums on these videos, we're yet again going to go into Dad Rock Zone with Kyle the Logic drummer. Take it away, Kyle. Yeah, I reckon Kyle did a pretty good job there. I really do think the overdrive before the fuzz adds some extra clarity and punch that you wouldn't have if you didn't have it there, and just really helps it to stop getting buried in the mix. And I guess from that segue, that will take us into our second tone tip. Now this tip is a little bit more specific to those of you who record your own guitars, but if you don't worry, because we've got something coming for you too. When guitars are recorded together, even though you might have your overdrive pedal on your fuzz already, you might still find you get a lack of separation between either left and right guitars or between the bass and the drums as well. So my second tip is using a clean guitar alongside the fuzz, playing the same part. And here you've got to try and be as tight as possible when you play the parts, which I'm definitely not. But basically what the clean guitar does, it adds that clarity in with the fuzz, and it can make recordings just sound 10 times better. And to me, not only does the clean guitar add clarity to the mix, it seems to add a bit of depth too. Maybe sometimes that bottom end's almost getting too squashed by the compression from the fuzz, and if you just put a clean guitar on there, you get the attack from the bottom end that really helps to add in with the fuzz pedal. And to demonstrate this, I've tuned down to drop C, because I usually find if there is going to be a problem with clarity, it's going to be when you're playing really low open notes and stuff with the big fuzzes on. And actually the chords I'm playing here are from one of my band songs that we really struggled to get these guitars to sit through when we first wrote the song. So hopefully you'll hear with the clean guitar that it really does make a difference. For the clean sound, I basically just took the pedals off and used the same sound from the amp sim. Obviously, I had to increase the gain a bit because it was so quiet with those pedals off. And actually, I think I added a little bit more gain. I've doubled up the fuzz on left and right and the clean on left and right, so it sounds super wide. Now, as I mentioned, that made more sense when you're recording guitars because you put the really heavy stuff on and then the clean one on as well. But it can work to some extent in a live setting. If someone's playing with the fuzz pedal, maybe it's worth someone else playing a less distorted part so the guitars balance out better. Now for our final tip, this is something that took me absolutely years to work out. For some reason, I always used to put my chorus pedal before my fuzz, and it sounded great, but I remember at some point I was listening to Nirvana Nevermind, and I thought, how did Kurt manage to get those soaring chorusy leads to cut through the mix and almost sound like the whole guitar was just full of chorus, whereas mine always sounded cool, but it sounded like very separate, distortion and then chorus. But anyway, I have no idea why I'd never tried this before, but I basically put the chorus after the distortion and everything changed. To me, it really does absolutely nail the lead chorusy sounds that both Billy Corgan and Kurt Cobain were using. I know they were playing differently and they were using completely different gear, but there's something about those chorusy sustained guitar lead lines that to me just scream 90s alt rock. And I think just moving those two pedals like that has made a world of difference. So here's just a quick look at what happens if you put the chorus before the fuzz and then the chorus after the fuzz. Okay, this is how the chorus sounds going before the fuzz. And then this is how the chorus sounds after the fuzz. Okay, so I'm just going to demo a lead line with the chorus in that order over the top of the track that we did before, and I think it sounds pretty cool. It's maybe not my best work, but I think you'll get the point. Now I know some of these things might seem a little bit obvious, but for me it took me absolutely years of trial and error, and ultimately happy accidents where I'd just try something slightly different and then it would just work. And actually maybe that brings me on to a bit of a lesson, that sometimes you just need to try different stuff. I think as guitarists we can get set in our ways a little bit, and we just kind of go on autopilot sometimes and play the same guitar in the same way with the same pedals, and we might get a new pedal and add that to the pedal board. But sometimes it's worth just trying completely different things and seeing how it turns out. And remember, these tips aren't just for recording, even the second one to some extent. And so I hope this has helped with some of the tone tips of what is personally my favourite genre of music, alt rock, indie stuff, kind of originated in the 90s, I guess. And if you want to dive more into the 90s kind of playing styles, then check out this video here next.